Um, I haven't felt this stuff since last Christmas when my wife made me watch 70 episodes of Revenge within 2 weeks. So if you've been here for 3 days, listen to all this stuff, my heart, my mind, my energy goes out to you because what an effort. I've never had to do a graveyard shift quite like this, George, at 7 p.m. and the bloody people in front of me, BCG, went over time. Hopefully they didn't charge you. But it is good to see a few of my mates in the audience. Josh Rowe, Ross Hill, Anwu, Jake. Is it Jake the Snake there? I don't know. It looks like him at the back. So I've been asked to do some closing remarks, and I didn't prepare a presentation because I thought you can't really prepare what the closing remarks are until you've seen what people are saying. So I suppose, how many years has Paul's been going, George? 5 years. And I came last year. And it was interesting. Last year it was probably more stages, more intense, but it was on the weekend. I felt it was a bit more techo focused last year. This year it's sort of been a bit more interesting. I think there's been a stronger sense of creative types, design types, a bit of tech, a bit of engineering and all that sort of stuff. But it really, to me, is sort of exemplary of what the change that's happening right now at the moment. It's interesting that if you watch TV at the moment, you're seeing ads from the government talking about innovation. A year ago, our Prime Minister at the time was saying that he wanted to invest in 21st century infrastructure in the terms of roads. Seas later, you miss out on the free beer. Okay, you go too. Geez, I'm doing well, George. Anyway, I said I'll shout people a beer at the end of it, so keep going. I haven't got that much money. The notion of 21st century infrastructure in the mind of Tony Abbott was roads. I thought they were 5th BC infrastructure the Romans had invented, but we're sort of in the midst of what is being called the ideas boom. This new opportunity. The reality is that opportunity has always existed, but once you start to see ads on TV, it become part of the national agenda. I think that we're in a really good position across all of the sort of creative industries as well as the tech industries and all that stuff. And to some extent, I'd see the people who turn up to events like Pause really, the engine room of the ideas boom. So, and again, to some extent, a lot of us have been batting our heads against walls for the last 20 years in the digital space or around innovation and struggling to get our bosses and large businesses to move. And it's interesting, to see companies like Telstra and Aussie Post here talking about design thinking, rapid iteration, prototyping. The notion of talking not about business cases and the problems of getting capital, but saying, hey, we're moving fast, we're failing fast, we're learning as we go. It's also great to see people like Hyperloop here. I was just reading an email before about some of the big geniuses of our time. It's been a great day for Gravity, both for Einstein and what's that one called? OK Go, that new film clip of the people in the aeroplane. If you haven't seen that, have a look. But it's this notion of people like Elon Musk who are saying, I did well out of PayPal, but what I want to do is create a future for the planet and for the humans on that planet, tackling things like space, tackling things like power, tackling things like transport. So, the people from the Foundation from Young Australians. So one of the, I asked Gillian Kelly a question before, and one of the things I get really worried about is this notion of everybody learning to code. I think everybody learning to embrace diversity and focus it on problems to solve things is a much better idea. And whilst I have no problem with people passionate and learning about STEM, if our sort of leaders think that the way to become participate in the digital revolution is to have 25 million code monkeys, I think they're wrong. I think it's that sort of notion of the teams that I've looked to build have human people with empathy, people like anthropologists, ethnographers, designers, artists, writers, software engineers, testers, project managers, creatives, just thinkers. That to me is what this digital world's about. That to me is what Pause Fest is about. It's about bringing together that diversity and saying, we can have a real crack and change things. The notion of experimentation came through pretty strongly for me. Whether that was the Telstra stuff, whether it was the Aussie Post stuff, the notion of experimenting and learning rather than doing business cases. Another good thing for me was that nobody mentioned blockchain today. Like if I hear blockchain another time this month, I think I'll vomit. Yeah, it's doing my head in. But anyway, at the moment, everyone's like blockchain will solve everything from financial transactions to world peace. I have a slightly different view. I think it's good, but yeah, it's very early days. One of the things I kept hearing today was about relentless customer focus. I always have a relentless focus on people who aren't my customers. If you want to disrupt something, you don't start with your current customers, you start with the people who aren't your customers. You start with the non-users. So when you're starting to think about things, look at who's not using your stuff. Think about, I am doing a startup, and then, again, I get 10 emails a day, I'm doing a startup and it's disruptive. And it's like, no, you're doing a startup and it's different, but it's just an incremental change on what's going on. So if you want to run a startup, think about customers, sure, but don't ask customers what they want. They don't know what they can have. Think about the problems, solving problems, and also think about, if you want to have a crack at a startup, look at what's there and say, well, who doesn't use that stuff? Because that's where you're going to get scale. In terms of brand, number one rule of startups for 20 years is don't mention the name. Because anybody who's been involved in a startup, and I'm setting up one now, which is called Lifetimes. It's a focus on non-users of genealogy sites. So we're taking on Ancestry. Our business model is we don't have one yet, but if we get traction, we reckon we'll work one out. But again, don't mention the name, because if you're running a startup, you could spend sort of 6 months, what about this name? What about this name? Anybody who watched Molly on the weekend will have seen the same sort of law running when they were trying to work out the name for Countdown. Thank God they didn't call it Pop Machine. The other one, which sort of almost floored me, Gavin Becker from Colenso BBDO, advertising agency mob. He asked marketers, what about thinking beyond campaigns? I don't think there's ever been somebody who works in an ad agency who said that. What about sustainability of what we're trying to do? What about making an impact beyond a 6-month cycle? So I would say that, fantastic, well done. I really thought that panel was good. The other interesting thing was 3 of the 4 people on that panel came from government places around. Again, it was sort of marketing campaigns, which I'm not a big fan of. I'm much more interested in sort of sustainable long-term change. But again, it was good to see that we're seeing change happening across the board, whether it's with government, whether it's with advertising agencies thinking differently. The startups out the front, again, most of them were Melbourne-based. There was a few that I really liked. I liked that Platter one, that augmented reality one looked good. We'll probably be doing something with them down at Deloitte Digital. That infrastructure one, the underground mapping one. Yeah, I'm going to sort of take that out to an infrastructure mob I'm talking to at the moment. So that was really good. The interesting one, there was the one about the data, the Tableau guy. This notion of data bringing your stories to life. He may not have been sort of quite Roald Dahl in his storytelling style, but this notion of it is so much easier for us to take data, bring it to life, and to tell a story with it. I suppose, given that it's sort of the end of the day, what would I be thinking about if I were you guys? If you're in the startup world or the creative world, it has never, ever been easier to set up a startup in history. Maybe it's easier in Silicon Valley. Maybe you'll get better ideas, whatever, better valuations, better money. But reality is, it's becoming easier and easier. The government's innovation statement, if you wait 6 months, it's going to be a lot easier for investors to get tax deductibility. So again, that makes it easier. Equity-based crowdfunding's coming out, so you don't just have to sell stuff. You can actually get equity into it. So again, new opportunities. If you're an entrepreneur, get out there, you can do it. These days, technology, when I started in this web game back in '93, was outspend, because everything cost a fortune. Now, outthink, out-execute. You don't need to be a big giant. The biggest problem big companies have isn't that, it's not this sort of BCG model of, hey, we've got shitloads of money, big brand and capability. It's like they get in their own way. Trying to get a decision out of a large organisation just takes forever. So the thing is, smaller businesses can move faster. They can absorb technology like sponges. They don't have a sort of see something person who can say no to everything. Big companies have about 30 of them. So if you're a startup, just go out with confidence and you'll be able to get stuff done. Again, don't fall in love with your idea. Be prepared to iterate. And if you've pivoted more than 5 times, the idea was probably dumb, come up with another one. If you're in a large organisation, this sort of, big organisations are shitting themselves all over the time, you know, that oh shit thing. They're having massive amounts of this. So some of them are doing venture funds, some of them are setting up accelerators, some of them are doing, you know, investments in startups and all this sort of stuff. The reality is big businesses are not startups. They do not think and act like startups. They shouldn't be doing minimum viable products. Product innovation is where all the effort goes, where the least return goes. They should be thinking about minimum viable business model transformations, which may have a product element in them, but you ain't going to sort of blow it out of the park if you just keep churning out better products. You know, it's sort of better products, you know, faster horses type stuff. It's not the way the world changes. Think of different business models. That's where you get your thing, minimum viable transformations. And if you're not tweaking your business model and you're just sort of putting out another product that's got an E in front of it or something, forget it. Go back to the start. I got an email about half an hour ago from a guy in Silicon Valley, and he was just talking about geniuses and a few of the mob over there who get together and waffle on about these things. And he came up with, or he sort of added a bit of a quote from somebody called Steve Jobs. And it's not the Stanford one, it's probably one you haven't heard. So I just want to end this conference with these words. When you grow up, you tend to get told the world is the way it is and your life is just to live your life inside the world as it is. You know, try not to bash the walls too much, try to have a good family life, have a bit of fun, save a bit of money. But that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And we've just gone into... Right, so remember, so it was made up by people no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use. The minute you understand that you can poke life and something will pop out on the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it, that's the most important thing. Shake off the notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improvement. Make your mark on it. I think it's very important, however, that you learn that. And once you learn it, you want to change life and make it better, because it's kind of messed up, and we know that. In a lot of ways, once you learn that, you'll never be the same again. So you've spent 3 days here, some of you, maybe some today, but you know, my advice would be probably feeling rooted like I am. Your mind's got a few things going on. Have a couple of sleeps. Think about it on Monday morning or Sunday night. What am I going to do? Because we are really, you know, I hate to sort of sound like Malcolm Turnbull, but it is a bloody exciting time to be alive. This is not a threat. You know, the stock market's going down and China's going to collapse and all the banks are going to die. You know, we've lived through that in '87, or I have because I'm old. You know, the dot-com boom, man, you know, everybody was cheering in the streets. See, we told you the internet's a fad. This shit's not going to change, but it's people like you, get in the engine room, take control of the stuff, and let's go and smash it out. Because you live in a great city, you've got great connections, we're in a great environment, and we can have a lot of fun with it. But the most important thing I suppose I've learned in life is be absolutely passionate about what you do. Find what your passion. Maybe you don't know what it is right now, that's okay. If you don't know what it is, go seek out. That's why a lot of you might be here. If you do know what it is, connect and go hard at it. So thanks for waiting around. Thanks for having me, George. I'm going to Beer Deluxe. Thank you. Bye.